A man with no wisdom, no shame, and yet, there he is, on the world stage, applauded, feared, elected. He stumbles through sentences, breaks promises in real time, uses language like a blunt object. But millions cheer, millions follow. He doesn't lead with logic. He commands with emotion, rage, bluster, certainty. You've seen this before, haven't you? Maybe not just once, not just in one country, but over and over, across borders, decades, regimes. It's never just an accident. It's a design. Have you ever looked at a political figure, a CEO, a leader, and asked yourself, how did someone like that get here? We were taught to believe the best rise to the top, that leaders are wise, informed, noble. But what if that was never true? What if power doesn't reward intelligence, but spectacle? What if the system isn't broken, but perfectly rigged to elevate the loudest, not the smartest? Centuries ago, Machiavelli watched men rise through treachery, not talent. He didn't see fools as mistakes. He saw them as a strategy. If you're still here, you're not average. Comment, still watching, and hit like if this is hitting somewhere deep. Let's keep going. What looks like incompetence may actually be performance. Because playing dumb is powerful when it makes others feel smart. Because simplicity sells, complexity alienates, and in a world addicted to noise, foolishness wins. This isn't about one man, one party, one country. This is a pattern, a psychological weapon, a flaw in the collective mind. And the most dangerous person isn't the one who doesn't know what they're doing. It's the one who knows exactly how little they have to do to win. You were taught that if you're smart, good, and hardworking, you'll rise. That the best ideas win. That truth cuts through the noise. But look around. Does it feel like the smartest voices are leading the world? Or are they quietly watching while someone louder takes the mic? We live in a world where power is decided not by intelligence, but by impression. Charisma beats clarity. Simplicity beats substance. Emotion beats truth. The rules of the game have shifted, if they were ever different to begin with. Today's leaders don't need to be competent. They just need to be seen. They need to provoke, stir outrage, trigger clicks, and the system, from politics to platforms, rewards them for it. Social media doesn't elevate depth. It promotes speed, outrage, repetition. The algorithm doesn't care if what you say is right, only if people react. So who gets rewarded? Not the wise, but the performative, the entertaining, the dangerous. Machiavelli predicted this. In The Prince, he wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be, few experience what you really are." To lead, he said, you don't have to be good, you just have to appear good. And when being honest threatens your popularity, you lie, strategically, ruthlessly, because the truth doesn't always win hearts, but a well-crafted illusion does. It's why a leader can cause harm, yet spin it as strength. Why a failure can be rebranded as boldness. Why an empty slogan can beat a thoughtful policy. This is the economy of perception. Perceived strength is more valuable than actual value. It's not about what's real. It's about what looks convincing enough to believe. You've seen it happen in elections, in corporate boardrooms, even in your personal life. The loud, the confident, the aggressive, they rise. Not because they know more, but because they sell better. And here's the tension you feel deep down. You did everything right. You followed the rules. You thought intelligence would speak for itself. But the truth is, this world isn't looking for the most thoughtful voice. It's looking for the most compelling one. And until you understand that, you'll keep wondering why the worst people keep winning. This isn't just a flaw in the system, it is the system. In school, you were taught that good leaders are honest, kind, selfless. You read about moral heroes and noble presidents. You were told that leadership is about service, about lifting others. But Niccolò Machiavelli saw something else. He lived in a world of backstabbing rulers, collapsing alliances, in power that changed hands not through ballots, but through blood. And from this chaos, he wrote The Prince, a guide not for dreamers, but for survivors, a manual for those who wanted to keep power once they had it. He wrote, "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." Not because fear is noble, but because it works. Fear binds people faster than admiration. Fear makes disobedience costly. Machiavelli's leader isn't a saint, he's an actor. He must appear compassionate while being calculated, generous in public, ruthless in private. Virtue to him is a tool, not a rule. And when morality becomes inconvenient, you drop it. Because in politics, he said, the ends justify the means. He admired men like Cesare Borgia, cruel, cunning, effective. Borgia once staged a public execution of his own corrupt minister just to win back the people's trust. It wasn't justice, it was strategy. The Roman emperors, they ruled by spectacle, bred in circuses, public games, military parades, gladiator shows. They knew how to keep the people distracted, entertained, and afraid. It wasn't about intelligence, it was about optics. This was Machiavelli's genius. He stripped power of its illusions. He understood that in the real world, leaders don't rise by being the best. They rise by looking untouchable, by bending the truth, by reading the room, not the rule book. Now contrast that with the intelligent person, the overthinker, the morally rigid. They analyze, reflect, worry about outcomes. They hesitate. They see the flaws in their own logic. They question the morality of their decisions. They play fair, even when the game isn't. And while they wrestle with conscience, the Machiavellian moves forward, unbothered, unburdened. He smiles for the cameras. He shakes hands with enemies. He promises change and delivers control. Because leadership in Machiavelli's world is not about being good. It's about being effective. And effectiveness requires one thing above all: adaptability. The smart may be right, but the cunning survive. It's a brutal truth. The game of power is not played on a moral field. It's played on a stage. And the one who knows how to act wins. Intelligence sees what others miss. It sees consequences before they arrive. It sees systems, contradictions, and hidden motives. But there's a curse embedded in that gift. Because the more you see, the more you hesitate. And the more you hesitate, the less you lead. Carl Jung once said, "The wise man is the loneliest." And maybe you felt that. That strange, silent ache that comes from watching the world make the same mistakes over and over, while you stand on the sidelines or screaming internally. You see the iceberg ahead, but no one listens. They cheer for the captain doing cartwheels on the deck. The truth is, brilliance often isolates, not because it's arrogant, but because it threatens the comfortable. Smart people ask why. They poke holes in easy answers. They challenge tradition, expose illusions, question power. But most people, they don't want truth. They want comfort. They want simplicity, certainty, and stories with clean villains and clear heroes. So when a genius whispers a complex truth and a fool shouts a catchy lie, the crowd follows the volume, not the validity. In a world built on attention, intelligence is often invisible. The thoughtful critic gets buried. The loud influencer goes viral. Think about it. The person who breaks down economic theory or critiques media manipulation gets maybe a few thousand views. But the one who yells into a camera with a red face and simple slogans, he gets 1 million. Because intelligence doesn't scream, it thinks. And in a system that rewards speed and certainty, thinking becomes a liability. That's why the wise rarely rise. They aren't willing to play dumb. They won't flatten their ideas to fit into 30-second sound bites. They don't chase applause. They chase understanding. But understanding is lonely. It's hard to monetize. It doesn't always feel good. So the smart get sidelined, not because they aren't capable, but because they're too complex for a world that runs on emotional shortcuts. You've felt this frustration, haven't you? Watching people gain influence not because they're insightful, but because they're shameless. Watching substance lose to style. Watching the idiot take the wheel. Again. But here's the philosophical twist. Maybe that frustration isn't failure. Maybe it's the price of clarity. Maybe wisdom isn't loud, because it doesn't need to be. And maybe just maybe, it's time to stop waiting for brilliance to rise on its own. Because the world won't hand it the mic. It never has. What if the most powerful person in the room isn't the smartest or the most capable, but the best at playing the part? In the age of optics, perception is reality. We don't choose leaders based on substance. We choose them based on spectacle, on image, on branding, on the illusion of competence. Modern institutions, political, corporate, cultural, aren't built on truth. They're built on theater, on lighting, language, sound bites, and symbolism. You don't have to know what you're doing. You just have to look like you do. Presidents rehearse their empathy in mirrors. CEOs rehearse sincerity with media coaches. Every gesture, every word, every silence, curated. They don't solve problems, they sell narratives. And the media? It doesn't report reality. It edits it. It selects the angle, the quote, the soundtrack. It manufactures heroes and villains, tears and triumphs, because drama is profitable. And clarity? It's complicated. People don't have time for nuance. So complex problems become emotional slogans. Us versus them. Good versus evil. Make it great again. Build back better. The simpler the message, the more powerful it becomes. Not because it's true, but because it's easy to digest. And so we enter the age of the illusion, where confidence is competence, where saying something loudly is mistaken for knowing something deeply, where leaders who radiate certainty are trusted more than those who tell hard truths. This is what psychologists call the illusion of explanatory depth. People believe they understand more than they actually do, and they reward those who speak with certainty, even if what they say is hollow. It's not just politics. It's everywhere. The charismatic manager who gets promoted while the quiet problem solver is overlooked. The influencer who speaks in platitudes but builds an empire. The billionaire who says nothing real, but says it with style. And here's where Machiavelli returns. He didn't believe power came from virtue. He believed it came from visibility, from control over appearances. He wrote, "A prince must be a great pretender and dissembler. He must act trustworthy. He must appear moral. But above all, he must seem strong, because perception to the masses is more real than reality. And you wonder why you aren't listened to, why your ideas get ignored, why reason falls flat while noise goes viral. It's not your fault. It's not about the value of your insight. It's about the architecture of the system. This world isn't designed to reward depth. It's built to reward dominance, to elevate those who master attention, not those who deserve it." So the game continues, and the mask wins. We don't just allow fools to rise, we re-elect them. We celebrate them. We turn them into legends, over and over again. You'd think one mistake would be enough, one failure, one exposed lie. But history shows us something far more chilling. People forget, or worse, they choose to. This is the tragedy of the crowd, not its weakness, but its predictability. In the crowd, Gustave Le Bon warned that when individuals become part of a mass, they lose critical thought. They trade reason for emotion. They stop asking questions and start following rhythms, chants, symbols, flags. Because the group doesn't want to think, it wants to feel. And nothing manipulates feelings better than power, especially foolish power. Because foolishness is relatable. It lowers the bar. It makes people believe, if he can lead, so can I. That illusion of closeness makes it easier to forgive, to forget, to reset the cycle. Nietzsche called it herd morality, a system where the masses define right and wrong, not by truth, but by comfort. Whatever soothes the most people becomes the new virtue. Whatever feels inconvenient becomes evil. So when a leader lies, it doesn't matter. If he promises hope, he is trusted. If he spreads fear, he is obeyed. Truth is irrelevant. What matters is the story. And the story is always simple. Us versus them, the hero versus the enemy. The promise of salvation, repeated until it becomes prophecy. Modern politics is built on this rhythm. Repeat a lie until it sounds like a truth. Say it with confidence. Wrap it in nationalism or faith or freedom. And the crowd will believe it, not because it's real, but because it's easier than uncertainty. This is how power survives, not by force, but by familiarity, by offering comfort in the face of complexity, by giving the people something to cheer for, even if it destroys them. So ask yourself, are we being ruled, or are we willingly surrendering? Because maybe the greatest trick of the fool in power is that he never had to steal control. We handed it to him, again and again, with open arms and short memories. They make mistake after mistake, lie after lie, yet somehow they remain, not just tolerated, but applauded, sometimes even re-elected. Why? Because the crowd doesn't remember, or perhaps it chooses not to. Gustave Le Bon once said that crowds don't reason, they react. And once you understand that, the whole structure of power begins to make sense. Crowds crave emotion over analysis, spectacle over substance. Fear and hope are their currencies, and the leader who masters them can do almost anything and be forgiven. It's not that people are stupid, it's that people in groups become predictable, and power exploits that predictability. A leader doesn't need to be competent, he just needs to trigger the right feelings. Fear of invasion, hope for prosperity, rage against the other, reassurance that everything will be okay. Say the right words, repeat them often, louder each time, and soon even a lie begins to feel familiar. And once it feels familiar, it begins to feel true. Nietzsche called this herd morality, when truth becomes less important than unity. When people stop asking, is this right? And start asking, is this what everyone else believes? It's why scandals fade faster than they should, why wars repeat, why politicians can run on the same failed promises and still win. Because memory is short, emotion is long. The cycle is brutal and efficient. A foolish leader rises, he entertains, he fails. The public gets angry, then distracted, then nostalgic. And when the dust settles, he's back, wiser, number better. Not really, but louder, and that's enough. So ask yourself, are we truly being ruled, or are we surrendering involuntarily? Not because we're powerless, but because it's easier, because thinking is exhausting, and rage is addictive. And deep down, some part of us prefers the fool on stage to the mirror of our own accountability. Because if the system keeps lying to us, and we keep buying it, who's really to blame? Here's the trap. The more you understand the system, the more tempting it becomes to play like everyone else, to abandon principle for power, to trade truth for attention, to become the very thing you once despised just to survive. And that's the danger. Because in a world where lies win, honesty feels like weakness. Where manipulation thrives, integrity feels naive. So what do? Withdraw, compromise. Most brilliant minds choose one or the other. They either retreat into isolation, watching the world burn from a safe distance, or they surrender to stay relevant. But there's a third path, a harder one, a quieter one, but perhaps the only one that lets you win without losing yourself. Understand the game, study it, know how power works, how perception is built, how people are moved. Use that knowledge strategically, not to manipulate, but to protect. Not to control others, but to navigate their illusions. Machiavelli believed in masks, Jung believed in shadows, and the Stoics believed in mastering the self before the world. So here's the truth. You will have to wear the mask sometimes. You will have to speak the language of the system, but never forget who you are underneath it. Let the mask be your tool, not your identity. Balance the mind of the strategist with the heart of the philosopher. Be kind, but not blind. Be aware, but not consumed. Because the only thing more tragic than watching the world fall apart is becoming the kind of person who helps it happen. Win, but win awake. And when you walk through the fire, make sure you come out with your soul intact. Machiavelli wasn't celebrating corruption, he was diagnosing it. He saw the world not as it should be, but as it is. A place that doesn't reward the most honest or intelligent, but the boldest, the most ruthless, the most visible. And unless the wise learn to move through that reality without being swallowed by it, the cycle will continue. So don't be consumed by the game, but don't ignore it either. Because if you want to change a system built for wolves, you'll need teeth and the courage to wear them without forgetting who you are underneath.